Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November Assessment Accountability webinar. This is Kevin Chandler, the Director of Assessment Accountability. As always, we have a few housekeeping notes. Everyone joining today is muted, but if you have questions during the presentation, you can send them to us through the questions panel. Simply type your question and click send. We have posted our presentation as a document, so you can download and follow along. Our presentation is also being recorded and it will be posted on our website, along with the transcript of the presentation. Okay, let's get started. To begin, we have a few updates on staffing changes here at the department. First up, Kevin Whitman has left the department for a position in the private sector. Before he left, though, he did ask me to thank everyone and let you know that he thoroughly enjoyed working with everyone. Next up is Taylor. She was our awesome specialist and did a fantastic job organizing and coordinating our fall roadshow. Her immense talents did not go unnoticed, so she is now working for our executive team as their events, coordination, and communication specialist. Congrats, Taylor. So that takes care of our departures. Let's talk about the arrivals. Terry Messick is our new administrative assistant. She is looking forward to working with everyone and taking on this new challenge. And then lastly, I will be taking on the role of director for the Assessment Accountability team. I too am looking forward to continuing our work together and taking on this new challenge. For the time being, I will still be managing the math and science assessments as well, and we'll do that until we bring a new person to fill this role. With those staffing updates completed, let's begin. So, because we are so proud of it, we also wanted to mention again that we have updated our website. If you go to the URL on this slide, you will notice that we have revised a few things. We made it easier to find the links to connect with us via the newsletter, this awesome webinar you are now attending, and PD requests. We are here to help and wanted to emphasize that in the new page. We also have a new portals and platform section. On this page, you can access the data portals for our different assessments in one spot rather than having to click through different parts of the site. The portals and platforms is under a new highlights section. We analyzed our usage data and tried to make it easier for you to find and access the resources that seem to be the most useful to you. Please check out the new site. Looking ahead, I wanted to reiterate some information about the December reporting requirements for Governor's Learning Loss Fund. This was the funding authorized to address learning loss and was separated into K through 4 and K through 12 buckets. Districts and charter schools applied to receive this funding. If your district or charter school received this funding, there were several reporting requirements. These requirements are in place because the authorizing legislation requires the Idaho SDE to report to the legislature on the use and effectiveness of these funds. Students who were supported using these funds should take the IRI, that is, participate in progress monitoring using iStation, between December 1st and 10th. Students supported by the K through 12 funds also need to take another assessment. We recommended the Sika or ICA, but have received flexibility to allow you to use a locally selected evidence-based assessment if your district or charter already has something you are using. There is also a separate reporting form that includes metrics like the number of students supported by credit recovery programs, where you can include information about any locally selected assessment. Our curriculum and content team will send that to superintendents and charter administrators in December. And a few clarifications on those requirements. Testing must occur between December 1st and December 10th. Earlier or later, assessments will not count. Not all students need to test. Only those supported by the Learning Loss Funds. For the K through 12 funds, the SICAs, ICAs, or locally selected assessments are only required when it is relevant as an outcome metric for the intervention you supported using the funds. For example, if you use the funds for general content remediation ELA, students who participated in that program should take an ELA assessment. However, If your program was focused on credit recovery in different subjects, those students do not need to test. Since the report to the legislature is focused on effectiveness, the guiding principle is whether the metric would serve as a reasonable metric for improvement. Finally, the SDE will access the IRI and ISAT data directly, so you will not need to send us any data files or information on those assessments. And with those updates, I'll pause for questions.
We have a couple. If using an alternate to ICA or Sika are new assessments to our district allowed, example, our district started using STAR this fall, is that an acceptable local assessment?
That is an excellent question, and I will have to follow up with the higher ups for a answer to that.
Thanks. Do third graders need to take both the IRI and the ISAT?
Yes, because the IRI is for third graders, and we do have a Sika or ICA for third graders. If they were supported using those funds, they will have to take an ICA or a Sika as well.
Thanks. Do we test 12th graders? What grade level tests do we give them?
I'll have to double check the notes that we put out, but I believe the testing requirement stops at grade 11, but I'll clarify that in the Q&A.
If we purchased iStation for K through 8, can we use that for grades 4 through 6?
That is another excellent question. I will seek clarification on that as well.
Okay. Do we get to see the JOT form soon so we know how to prepare data to answer these questions?
I will follow up with our content and curriculum folks to see when exactly they're going to be sending out that JOT form. Again, the timeline now is December, so I'll see if they can send that out as soon as they can.
Thank you. And then there was a comment. I thought the test grades were grades 4 through 9 and 11 for the ISAT December testing. That was the communication sent out earlier this fall.
Exactly. Yes, that was the communication I was referring to as well. I'll double check that and make sure it's clear in our follow-up Q&A.
Cool. That is it for questions for right now.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm going to throw it over to Taylor for the accountability update.
Hi, everyone. This is Taylor. Ica and Valerie had a conflicting meeting today, so I'm going to take their slides. The graduation rate reappeals window opens on December 6th through December 10th. If you miss the appeals window, please submit your appeals during the reappeals window. Are there any questions? I will do my very best to answer them. All right, no questions for that, but there was another follow-up question for the December stuff. So does that mean for the December testing, grade 3 does not need to take the ISAT?
Again, I'll have to double check that memo. I have not memorized it, but I will double check it and make sure to include that chart in our follow-up Q&A. Okay, excellent. Throw it over to Andrew for our ALPA update.
All right, good morning. This is Andrew Bennett, your English Language Proficiency Assessment Coordinator at the department. Here to give you some ALPA updates and important reminders as we get into the last 2 months of the year. The Idaho State Department of Education will be uploading the state's WIDA AMS pre-ID file to the Data Recognition Corporation at the end of November. To be specific, the upload is scheduled to be submitted on Friday, November 26th. The WIDA AMS pre-ID file is used to order access for Ells test material, create student pre-identification labels, populate the WIDA assessment management system with student information, and assign students with specific test accommodations. L information is pulled directly from the English Learner Management System, so it is imperative that district coordinators ensure that each EL has a current L1, LE, or EW English learner status within Elms. Test coordinators are recommended to review the default settings within Elms and either verify and or modify, 1, the access for Ells mode of administration or assigned accommodations listed on a student's IEP or 504 plan prior to the upload. And as a reminder, access for Ells online is the default test mode for Idaho. All right, explicit information detailing how a test coordinator can verify and or modify a student's access for Ells information is listed within the Access Pre-ID file and materials ordering how-to guide. The how-to guide can be found on the ALPA webpage under Files, or you can view it by selecting the link below. All right, changes have been made to the available access for Ells accommodations for the 2021-2022 access test window. District's IEP teams and test coordinators are encouraged to review the changes outlined in the Access for Ells Accessibility and Accommodations Manual prior to the Access for Ells test administration. Below gives a review of the accommodations updates. Most notably is that the extended time within the school day, or ET accommodation, this support is now listed as an administrative consideration. The human reader for items and human reader for response option accommodations have both been consolidated into one in-person human reader, or IR accommodation. The human reader for repeat items and human reader for repeat of response option accommodations are now listed as one as well, repeat in-person human reader, or RP accommodation. And finally, the Access for Ells test materials for grades 6 through 12 are now available in Unified English Braille Technical, in addition to Unified English Braille with Nmsqt code in both contracted and uncontracted Braille. Please note that the Access Setup feature in Elms has been restructured to reflect the accommodations updates. If you have questions, do not hesitate to contact me. In December, the Idaho State Department of Education, in partnership with WIDA, is providing 2 face-to-face training sessions targeting a positive Access for Ells planning and administration protocols. Both the Access for Ells test coordinators and Access for Ells online test administrator training sessions give participants the opportunity to heighten their understanding of administrative best practices and assessment policies. The trainings will be held at the following locations and dates. You can register for these trainings by selecting the link provided. Registrants will receive confirmation email on November 23rd. Because of capacity limits, not all participants who register will be able to attend, but the SDE will make every effort to accommodate each district's request. This table is a snapshot of the important 2021-2022 access dates. If you have any questions about these dates, please do not hesitate to reach out. And ELPA training webinar topics and links are posted on the ELPA webpage under the trainings tab. The trainings webinars are a great opportunity for districts and schools and teachers to review specific protocols around training, planning, preparing, and administering Idaho's English language proficiency assessment. Recorded webinars from WIDA's webinar series can be accessed through the WIDA secure portal under webinars heading, and a copy of the Idaho SDE monthly webinar slide decks are accessible via the ELPA website under the trainings tab. And I do have a question. It says, what date will Elms be updated with the November IC upload information? The last date to submit IC, I believe, is on the 19th of November. So our system updates when IC is updated, and the due date for those IC submissions are on November 19th.
My name is Karen Striegel. I'm the Special Education Coordinator for Alternate Assessment, Low Incidence Disabilities, and Medicaid. I'm pleased to finally share information about scores for the Idaho Alternate Assessment in ELA and Math from spring 2021. The scores became available on the Idaho Portal reporting system on Monday, November 8th. District and school staff will access the Idaho Alternate Assessment individual score reports for ELA and Math in the same way they access spring 2021 ISAT reports. It is important that district and school test coordinators and administrators work with teachers whose students took the Idaho Alternate Assessment last spring to help them access these reports, because many of them have no experience with the reporting system. Don't forget that you need to change the reporting time period to the 2020-2021 school year. As a reminder, school districts and charter schools must send individual score reports to parents within 3 weeks of the scores being released. In this case, the deadline for sending IDAA individual score reports to parents is Monday, November 29th. Because the COVID-19 pandemic played havoc with the 2020-21 school year and the spring 2021 test administration, we are providing you with a cover letter template that school districts and charter schools can customize to send home with the Idaho Alternate Assessment individual score reports. The following announcement was posted to the Idaho portal on Monday, although I've tweaked it a little bit for this webinar. I quote, "With the release of the 2021 IDAA ELA and Mathematics Individual Score Reports, or ISRs, it is important that parents, teachers, and administrators understand how these scores should be used. Remember that the spring 2021 IDAAs were new assessments and that we could not conduct standard setting because of issues related to COVID-19. Therefore, the Idaho State Board of Education waived the rules for scoring for the IDAA for 1 year to allow us to produce these one-time scores. This means that a student's performance on the IDAA can only be used to represent his or her understanding of academic content for the 2020-21 school year. While the student's performance on the spring 2021 IDAA can be used to inform instruction for this year, a student's performance cannot be compared to his or her performance in previous school years. This also means that a student's performance on the spring 2021 IDAA cannot be compared to other students in the class, school, district, or states. ELA should customize the IDAA individual student report cover letter template to send home with the student's IDAA ISRs. End quote from the announcement. Please, please, please share this information with teachers. They must understand the limitations of interpreting student scores on the IDAA. You can download the cover letter template from the Idaho portal. It's hyperlinked in the announcement, or you can find it under the resources section of the Idaho portal. Please, please, please customize the letter and send it home with each student's IDAA individual student score reports. One other quick thing before you advance is SPED directors already got an email and the cover letter. They got that on Friday. Please connect with them. I know sometimes we all get in our silos and we don't always communicate. Please, please make this happen. Okay, now you can advance, Chandler. And some of you may be wondering about the scores from IDAA Science. Remember, it was an independent field test last spring, so no scores. And this is the same as for ISAT Science. In spring 2022, the alternate assessment in science will be operational field tests, which means we'll be holding standard setting in the summer and scores will be released next fall. Thank you in advance for sending the customized cover letter home with students' IDAA ISRs.
Somebody asked, is the cover letter available in Spanish?
You know, because it happened so quickly, it's not in Spanish. And if you don't have a way to get it translated in your district, then please shoot me an email and I will work on that today. But since you're going to customize that letter, and if you have capacity, I'm going to ask you to do it. But you guys let me know if I need to.
We're going to wait a few more seconds for any last minute questions for that.
To start, let's quickly introduce new resources created by the Idaho SCE, the ELA Literacy and Math Target Reports. Input the proficient and weak or strong symbols from the summative ISAT into the ELA and Math Target Reports for your district, school, or roster. Target Reports then automatically summarize that data so that educators can quickly identify which targets students are performing well on and which targets students need more work on. The target reports also include links to the Smarter Content Explorer for an in-depth examination of the standards within the target, links to the Interim Assessment Item Portal for a list of interim items aligned to that target, and links to the Interim Connections playlist on Tools for Teachers. A user guide for the target reports is also posted on the Idaho portal under Resources. Links to all these resources are embedded in this slide. With those new resources called out, remember that the practice test window is open now. Practice and train tests exist so that students can practice using the test delivery system and any necessary designated supports and accommodations. The practice test window is open now until the end of July. ELA, math, and science interim testing window is open now until February 25, 2022. Lots of resources to support interim assessment administration are posted on the Idaho portal, so be sure to check them out. And just like last school year, the interims can be administered in either a standardized or non-standardized administration. With a standardized administration, a TA creates a test session and students take the interim via the test delivery system. With a non-standardized administration, educators can use the Assessment Viewing Application, or AVA, to administer an interim using formative assessment techniques. Students can log in and take an interim using the secure browser installed on their workstation, or access the remote interim testing site available on the Idaho portal. Students can use a conventional browser to access the remote interim testing site in order to take an interim. Lastly, several districts and schools have reached out to Maureen and I for professional development on how to implement use of the interims and how educators can use the results from those interims to connect to additional resources on Tools for Teachers. This is great, and we highly encourage it. Maureen and I have put together a two-part professional development series on the interim assessments. They are real barn burners, and from what I understand, really great. Request a train today via our training request form. In addition to practice tests and interims, the authoring platform is available for educators to create items and build and share tests. An authoring user guide and PowerPoint training module is also available on the Idaho portal. Additionally, we have confirmed with Cambium Assessment, our ISAT testing vendor, that field authored tests will be available between the interim and summative testing windows, and then during the summative testing window as well. Looking forward to summative testing, the Idaho SDE has elected to go with the adjusted blueprints for Spring 22 summative testing in ELA and Math. Spring 22 summative adjusted blueprints for ELA and Math are available on the Idaho portal. Just like the Spring 21 blueprints, the Spring 22 adjusted blueprints will yield claim level data at the aggregate or roster, but not at the individual student level. Speaking of blueprints, the science operational field test blueprints for elementary, middle school, and high school are also available on the Idaho portal. They show the number of clusters and standalones that will be administered per content area, as well as the potential number of field test clusters and standalones will be administered. Just a few more updates. As we mentioned before, the interims can be taken remotely via the remote interim testing site. Additionally, the Idaho SDE has decided to allow remote administration of the summatives in Spring 22. With that said, let me reiterate, there will be no changes implemented to TIDE or to the TA app for administration of the interims. Students will still be able to take an interim with a conventional browser via the remote interim testing site currently on the Idaho portal. As mentioned at the last webinar, the Idaho SDE's expectation is that all summative testing will occur in person. Let me repeat that. The Idaho SDE's expectation is that all summative testing will occur in person. However, if remote administration is right for certain students, here are a few specifics to keep in mind when you're planning for summative testing. First, there will be no application process for remote summative testing this school year. However, be aware that the Idaho SDE will be monitoring settings in TIDE and reaching out if necessary. Then, just like last year, the remote TA certification course is required for all TAs that will be administering a summative test to remote students. Additionally, the parental consent for AV monitoring consent form and TIDE attribute will both be required for students that will take a summative test remotely. To wrap up, in order to take a summative test remotely, the student will have to use the secure browser in order to access the ELA, Math, or Science summative test. The reason for this change is that there will be no separate remote fixed form in Spring 22. Then, For our summative testing window, we are expecting that the in-person and the remote summative testing windows will be the same, March 24 to May 13, 2022. More details, clarifications, and resources will be made available in the coming weeks, so be sure to subscribe to our newsletter if you have not already. And with that, are there any ISAT questions?
Yes. Will Ava still be available after February 25th?
Yes, Ava will still be available after February 25th.
Thank you. Can we utilize an electronic version of the audiovisual consent form, such as a Google form?
That's a really great question. The purpose for the consent form is that for the districts and schools to be able to document that. If there's a way to make sure that you guys are able to keep that documentation in your files, then that should be okay, but we'll make sure to clarify that in our Q&A afterwards.
Thank you. Is the SBE considering allowing classroom teachers to proctor their own students?
That is an excellent question. That decision is still TBD, and we'll be sure to follow up with guidance way before the summative testing window opens up.
Are districts able to give non-summer school interims during the governor's learning loss timeframe, the December 1st through 10th timeframe?
Wow, that's a really good question. So the interim testing window is open now. You must give either the ICA or the SICA during that December 1st through December 10th. I guess as far as the summer testing window, that opens later, but the ICA and the SICA will still be available then as well.
Why did they get rid of the IAB and SIAB for 9th and 10th grade?
So for the high school interims, what Smarter does is they create basically a pool of high school interim items, and then they slap those onto the high school interim tests, and then therefore they can be administered kind of throughout all the different high school grades, whether that be 9, 10, 11, or 12.
Is there a script for the interim assessment for proctors to use?
There is the interim test administration guide, but I don't believe there's a specific script. Teachers can administer those, so yeah.
Thank you. Is training available for authoring assessments feature?
Yes, on our portal, we do have a authoring training module and an authoring user guide. You can also reach out to us via the training request form to do more specific trainings on authoring.
Thank you. Will AVA allow access for teachers to view and use interims after February 25th?
Yes, AVA will be available after February 25, open all through the summative window and into the summer.
And then will you remind us the difference between the Interim ICA and the Sika?
Yes, I sure can. There are a couple differences. With the ICA, that's for ELA and math, the ICA has two parts, the CAT portion and the PT portion. The student has to take both in order to receive a scale score. For the SICA or the Sika, that only has the one part, and the student takes the Sika and they still receive a scale score.
Thank you. Those are the only ISAT questions for now.
All right, I'll throw it over to Marie for our IRI update.
Thank you, Chandler. Hi, everyone. I'm Maureen Frybren, English Language Arts and Literacy Assessment Coordinator. This is a reminder that our next professional development opportunity for the IRI with iStation will be on Tuesday, November 16th at 3:30 Mountain Time. The training will be virtual. Please still register even if you're not able to attend, because a link with a recording will be sent to your email. During this professional development, educators will learn to use growth reports to track growth towards student goals and determine how to best adjust instruction or intervention to help students achieve success. Participants will look at the following growth reports: rate of improvement, skill growth by level, and skill growth details. The registration link was sent out to district testing and IRI coordinators, and the link has also been included in our newsletter. The new Idaho Literacy Achievement and Accountability Act requires that each school district shall report to the State Department of Education the number and percentage of students by grade level on an individualized reading improvement plan. By default, the department will report the number of K through 3 students in your district or charter who are not reading at grade level on the most recent fall IRI administration. However, we do have a form for you to fill out if you'd like to report a different number for your district or charter. Forms are due by November 12th. An email regarding this information was sent to district testing coordinators, and a link was also included in our newsletter. And now I will pause for questions about the IRI.
While we are waiting for IRI questions, we did have a follow-up ISAT question. There was a problem for remote testing students who tested on Chromebooks that are not school managed. SE and Cambium were working towards a resolution for this year's testing. Can you please update on this?
Yep, so we will definitely follow up with Cambium on that. They are still working on rolling out the technology for the remote testing, but yes, we will definitely follow up with them on that.
Thank you. We will wait a little bit longer for any lingering IRI questions.
Excellent. So I'm going to throw it over to Taylor for our college entrance exams update.
Hello again. So covering for IACA again, we are talking about the pre-administration for SAT and AccuPlacer. The November college entrance exam newsletter was released on the 2nd, and it is waiting in line to be posted on our website. Here are some of the key points that were included in this month's edition. PSAT Nmsqt score release. Educators begin receiving PSAT Nmsqt scores in the K-12 reporting portal on the 29th. Students begin receiving PSAT Nmsqt scores in their student account on December 7th. Score release may be delayed due to a variety of reasons. If you have any missing scores, please reach out to IACA. Determine fee waiver eligibility. The state will cover the 10th grade PSAT Nmsqt. However, 11th graders are not covered under the state contract. Please have your schools review the PSAT Nmsqt fee waiver policy, as the fee is waived for students in need. Schools must allow the alternative eligibility requirements when a universal free lunch policy is in effect. And lastly, validate grade levels for PSAT Nmsqt invoice. If your schools participated in the state-sponsored PSAT Nmsqt school day, please make sure they participate in the grade level validation process. If the grades are not validated, your school may receive a bill that should be covered by the state. Are there any questions for college entrance exams? Is College Board going to mail us score reports in December this year? Last year, they didn't arrive until late spring. To be perfectly honest, this is not my area of expertise, but I will pass the question on to IACA, and we will make sure it is included in the Q&A.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for attending. While we're waiting for any last-minute questions, let me go ahead and let you know that our next webinar will be 10 a.m. Mountain on Wednesday, December 8th. You can find links to register for this webinar or to review past webinars on the Assessment Accountability's redesigned homepage under the Connect with Us heading. And with that reminder completed, are there any final questions before we wrap up? We'll stay on the line a little bit longer in case you do. We will include the questions and answers with the video that we post. Watch for the video, a PDF, or the PowerPoint and the questions and answers later this week.
All right, we did get a follow-up question just for clarification for somebody who didn't get here until a little bit too late. Can you clarify which students need to take the interim test December 1st through 10th if our district took learning loss funds?
Sure can. So for the Governor's Learning Loss Fund, those students supported by those learning loss funds for ELA and math, they should take an assessment during December 1 through 10th. We recommend the ICA or the SICA interims that are available on the Idaho portal. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a wonderful day.